The effort that was mounted here to combat this pandemic was really an example, I think, of what we as human beings can do when faced with what appeared to be an insurmountable challenge. But I think it shows what we as human beings can achieve when we put our minds together, when we start beginning to figure out how to combat an adversary, in this case, a biologic entity, a virus.
The greatest collaboration of all was the collaboration between not only the ag industry, but also farm worker advocate groups. That was, to me, unprecedented. So many groups banding together, putting aside our disagreements of the past and focusing in on what we saw as necessary, which was the protection of the farm workers, for the protection of agriculture, for the protection of the food that we produce.
Great cooperative effort through all the various different agencies coming together with the ag organizations as well as the growers, the landowners, the farmers, the processors, the shippers, the harvesters, everybody coming together to make those adjustments to ensure that the essential workers were protected.
Through these collaborative efforts, Monterey County became the first county to advocate for PPE for farm workers. Then it was priority testing, and most recently priority vaccination. These efforts allowed Monterey County to be a leader when it came to being a voice for protecting essential workers throughout this crisis. The recognition from our ag leaders of the needs of our farm worker community was there from the very beginning. And I think there was a recognition that without these essential workers, those crops would have remained unharvested throughout the last year or so. Monterey County Tried to Be was an example of what we could do when we work together. And not once through this crisis did we ever think we were doing enough. Every single week we thought through and we strategized about what more can we be doing, from initiating new programs such as alternative housing program, or deploying nurses to go out into the work sites to educate workers to prevent becoming ill. Or to creating wage replacement programs so people knew they weren't going to lose wages because they were isolating to protect themselves and their families. And as a result of that, even Governor Gavin Newsom created a statewide program based on the alternative housing program that was started right here in Monterey County.
When the pandemic first hit, there was a severe need, a shortage of personal protective equipment, masks, gloves for the farm worker community. And our office was tasked with trying to procure these supplies to then distribute to the ag workers. We worked in cooperation with several different departments, California Department of Office of Emergency Services and California Department of Pesticide Regulation, and we arranged shipments of these PPE items to our office to store, and then we held several distribution events throughout the year for farm workers, pest control businesses, and growers. In August of 2020, lightning strikes caused several wildfires in the Bay Area and Monterey County as well. The smoke from those fires coming from Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, San Benito County, Santa Clara County really affected the air quality in our valley. And in order to help farming continue, we provided N95 particulate masks to the growing community so that their workers could remain safe while still keeping ag industry going.
El año pasado, con la pandemia del COVID, tuvimos una colaboración con la Oficina del Comisionado de Agricultura y el Programa de Promotores Comunitarios de CCA. En esta colaboración, aparte de la educación, era llevar esta información a los trabajadores del campo, trabajadores esenciales, sobre lo que era la pandemia, lo que era el COVID, qué eran los síntomas, cómo prevenirlos, pero sobre todo porque era importante hacer la prueba aunque no hubiera síntomas. Una de las principales objetivos era la prevención, no solamente del trabajador esencial, sino también de sus familias.
The wine industry is resilient. It always has been, it will continue to be. This has been a challenging year, particularly with the fires and COVID. COVID, we've been able to learn and adapt and actually create new processes based on that were even better than what we were doing before. So we learned how to be better business people from COVID, even though it was really, really hard. The fires are something that were just so actually much more uncontrollable, and they came during our harvest. So we lost a considerable amount, almost half of our harvest was gone. Fortunately, none of the vineyards were affected in terms of the plants being affected. Only the grapes were affected, not the plants. So that's great news.
With the pandemic and the wildfires and the uncertainty of what to do and how to do it, this presented us with the greatest adversity we had ever encountered. And yet, we continued. The ag industry continued. Our inspection staff continued. The whole industry continued, even though other industries could not. We continued to produce the food that we produce. And yes, there was a significant drop-off in the value of ag for 2020, but still we produced a phenomenal amount of food, of produce, and I'm certain that in 2021 we will be back closer to what we always produce, which is upwards of $4.5 billion annually.
The season last year was difficult for growers because there was less demand. Restaurants were closed. There was just not as much need for a lot of the food, so they grew a lot less. This year we're seeing an increase in the amount of food that's being planted and harvested and distributed because now we're able to open up a little bit more, and as the pandemic numbers continue to decline, we'll see that increase, and throughout the rest of this season, you would expect by the end of October that it will really be going strong in the fields, and production will be about as high as it can be.
Resiliency and resilient are key words here that showed up, and they characterize the actions, the activities that were carried out to ensure that society would stay safe, and that really we received that second life that we all got just by having strategies to protect us from this virus, and ultimately having a vaccine that can keep us safe and alive.
The theme, I think, for last year is, one, we're resilient. We will get through anything, and we get through it because we have great support from each other, because we're willing to reach out, we're willing to help each other, and this web of partnership in Monterey County, which is incredible. And then not only that, but throughout California and for the wine industry throughout the world, got us through and will continue to lift us up and make us better as an industry.
So I think here in our community locally, I think we did in collaboration, did a fantastic job in making sure that the workforce that produces food was safe, and continuing to produce, food for the nation and the world.